Good evening, everyone. Well, listen, what I wanted to do is catch up with the man, the myth himself, and that's Qasim Sheikh. And probably don't know me, but listen, Sheikhy actually interviewed me first for his first ever podcast on Sheikhy's sporting journeys. I think it was Sheikhy's cricketing tours then, actually, when I came on. And what I wanted to do, sitting from the outside in, was actually grab the man and let the people hear his stories from growing up and playing cricket and why he started this podcast and the sort of difficult times that Kaz went through. So Kaz, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity, mate, to let you sit on the other side of the fence this time and get me involved.
It's quite refreshing, actually. I was thinking, I normally stress I've got a podcast at some point today and you need to do some research, you need to be prepared. It was quite nice to know that I don't have to do anything. It's all on you. I just need to answer the questions that you're going to ask. So no, it's quite nice. Preparation's been a lot less stressful, which has been quite handy because I've been moving all week. So and just to the viewers, Ryan Flannigan was as he said, the first guest I had on the show. We've played a lot of cricket together. He's a great character, and I thought it'd be quite cool to team up with him and have him on as a co-host and maybe do some of his own hosting, and maybe he can take some of the burden off me with some of the names that we've got lined up. But over to you, my friend.
Perfect, mate. And I think that's what, a lot of people, I can speak for myself and a lot of the lads in the cricketing world and my dad, and they've really enjoyed some of the guests you've had on, and I think there's some big things to come. And as I said before, in difficult times, if you can put a smile on people's faces, Kaz, why not, mate? So let's get cracking, if you don't mind. And I think for me, it's like, where it all starts, isn't it? Like, how did you get into cricket? Because that's what we want to talk about first and foremost. When you were a young lad growing up in the suburbs of Glasgow, where was it? How did you get into cricket, mate?
I think plain and simple, the background I come from, my father's side of the background is obviously from Pakistan, which is a massive cricket playing country. My dad's older brother played first class cricket at a good level in Pakistan as well. So it's safe to say I was pretty much born with a bat in my hand. My dad loves his cricket. His idol's Imran Khan. He's grew up sitting in the stadiums in Lahore watching cricket. So I think I was always whether I was going to be any good at it or not, but I was going to be given a cricket bat and a ball. And to be honest, I just took to it from a very young age. Yeah. Thankfully, my back garden was all slabbed. Well, actually, it was grass and then a little bit of slab, but then my dad got it all slabbed because I didn't like the bounce on the grass. So I pretty much used to just bowl and bat myself sometimes in the back garden, drop the ball in a tee, pretend I was making test hundreds, bowl a bit of left arm seam. You wouldn't have got to see the left arm seam. It was just that I'd hung the boots up just by the time you started. But listen, my dad got floodlights installed in the back garden. The whole terrace used to get lit up. So yeah, pretty much. And I've also, my mum introduced me to Mike Stanger at Clydesdale when I went down there, and introduced me as this is my son Qasim, he sleeps through his bat. And that's been in a few articles ever since. So it's a wee bit concerning that sounds a bit dodgy, but yeah, I think that's how much I love my cricket bats.
And you mentioned your dad there. Obviously, must have been quite a big figure for you. And I suppose he's taught you a lot. As you know, I can relate to that. And what was it like growing up? Being an Asian lad in Glasgow and playing cricket. Was it difficult? Was it easy? What was it like?
Listen, playing cricket, as you probably know from being in school and stuff, you used to get some passing comments. It was you would get called some inappropriate names. Back in the day, it was allowed for some of those comments to fly, but nowadays, I'm talking related to kind of homosexuality, etc. You would get called names related to that for playing cricket. I soon straightened out a few of the boys as we got older and took them down to the nets and made them face a cricket ball, and they soon took back what they were saying. But even still, that was wrong to use that term. Altogether, it was you wouldn't get away with that in this day and age, and rightfully so. Yeah. Being an Asian, I was born in Glasgow, so there's guys that maybe had it a wee bit tougher that have come over and started at a later age in their teams, etc. But I was very much Glaswegian. I played football at school. I was very comfortable with my surroundings. So no, it was quite fun. I enjoyed. I was a very confident character, didn't lack confidence. So I made my way pretty quickly. I think from the age of 6, my mum and dad took me down to Clydesdale Cricket Club, and they didn't take kids in until I think 7 or 8, but they decided to take me on. So no, great child memories, all thanks to my mum and dad. They without them I wouldn't have been anywhere near where I got to.
And it was Clydesdale, mate. Is that where you started? I was going to say, when did cricket sort of started getting serious? But it started at Clydesdale for you. Yeah?
Clydesdale was the first childhood club, only 6 minute drive from where I lived, over a Battlefield Road. And yeah, I would. My dad would have to wait. My dad would pick me up at 8:30. The arranged time was, and I would still be in the ground at 9:15 in the pitch black, telling my dad to wait another 5-10 minutes. I'm sure your old man can relate to that as well. Thankfully, they both had cricketing interests, so it made it a little bit easier. But I think if my parents didn't understand the sport or anything, I might have got a clip round the ear a couple of times and told, get shifting.
Yeah. And when did cricket sort of get serious for you, mate? Was it under 13s or was it 15s? Obviously, I want to touch on your career later on, but when did it sort of get a little bit like, well, you know what, I want to play this a bit more seriously?
For me, you'll relate to this. The district setup starts at under 13. So my first trip was to go to Merkison for the district festival under 13s, which was great childhood memories, playing against the North, the East and the South. I had a big rival in Kyle Coetzer, fellow all-rounder at the time, who was playing for the North. So he was my benchmark. I wanted to do better than him.
Fellow all-rounder, I'm not sure for that.
We talked about it on our podcast, actually. There was a game where he took, I think it was 5 wickets in 1 over, and I took 4 wickets in 1 over. And it was just like, because the 2 grounds are side by side, and it was like I would get a wicket and then he would get a wicket, and it was just, going toe to toe. Obviously, he was a great batsman as well. Both of us scored a lot of runs in that series, and then we were all, the Scotland under 13 team was selected, and then we went on tours such as down to Northumberland for a game or 2, and then the great tour was Ampleforth. But that was the first real moment of thinking, right, this is a big time now, because you're obviously coming up against Lancashire, Essex, all the names. You want to perform against these teams. So no, that was the first real introduction into serious cricket. I just absolutely loved it. I mean, I could not get enough of it. Just loved it.
And did you have that sort of competitive edge? Do you have that sort of that competitive edge in you from the get go? Do you reckon you had it then as well?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, you played cricket with me. You've played under my captaincy as well, so you know that I'm not shy to voice my opinion, and I don't like to lose. I very much like to win. And I always feel you'll relate to this as well, being Scottish, and you go down to play against the English, they look down the nose at you a little bit, and they think these boys have got no right competing against us. So that always got the blood going. That always really wanted you always had that wee bit of feistiness in you that, listen, we'll show these boys what we can do. We took a fair amount of backside kickings as well, but we turned over some top teams as well and let them know that we can play cricket up here in Scotland. So yeah, no, from a young age, very, very competitive. And
it was something you mentioned, Kyle, there, and been fortunate enough to play with him. And I think for me, looking back when I was growing up, I think the first big occasion for any young cricketer was like under 19 level, wasn't it? Like a World Cup. And I know you were lucky enough to go to World Cup with Kyle and a lot of the other lads there. Was that your first taste of cricket at like a senior level, where maybe the ball was coming a bit quicker, in the air and off the bat with these lads?
100%. I mean, we had the European Championships in Edinburgh, which was Scotland, Ireland, the Netherlands and Denmark, and only one team qualified. So you had to win the tournament. We played Ireland in the decider at Watsonians, one of your old clubs. And it was myself and Kyle actually at the back end of the innings chasing against Ireland. And I was 15, Kyle would have maybe been 16 at the time, playing under 19s. They were coming hard at us. They had a lot of players that have went on to do really well. John Mooney, Niall O'Brien. It was and boys are playing for a spot in the World Cup. So it was a really, really crunch game, and we managed to get over the line and qualify for the World Cup. So going into the World Cup, already felt quite comfortable in the team. I had a great captain in Robert Moore, who was brilliant with me as a youngster. You had the likes of Stevie Gilmore. We had the name Stuart Coetzer, Kyle Coetzer's older brother.
Did you always know that Rob was going to be a a high class lawyer, but even
100%, 100%. There was no doubt. There was no doubt about it. With Barbara and Mr. Moore himself, you know, they set the benchmark. But no, I think you could always tell with Rob, he was destined to become a high end lawyer, man. He's got that. That's what I liked about Rob as well. He had that bit of fight about him as well. He wasn't shy to get stuck into the other and say it as well. Right, boys, let's get stuck in. And people would normally us boys from Glasgow call you boys from Edinburgh. I know you're from a wee bit away, you're a wee bit out the way. We tend to call you boys. They're a bit soft in the East Coast. You know, they don't like to get in a confrontation. But Rob was the opposite. I mean, he was always game for a confrontation. So it suited me playing under his captain, his leadership. So no, I had great memories of it.
Mate, I wonder if he's got a wee photograph in his inside pocket of the Scotland '19 team, just like his dad's got a picture every game he's played in.
Well, the real legend of the family's is Hamish, isn't it? He was, you know, I heard lots of stories. I never really got to spend much time with him, but I heard so many stories about him. He would let you know from afar how good he was. Rob wasn't quite, because I think that's why he became the captain as well. He was quite good at he brought the boys together. He was very encouraging. If you'd done well, he was the first guy to pat you in the back. So no, it was really going into that World Cup, getting to go to New Zealand. Don't get me wrong, the flight was an absolute killer. But my mum actually went over. Rob's parents went over. I'm sure Stevie Gilmore's parents, father, I think, went over. There was a lot of parents that made the trip over. So we had a Stuart Leggett, his mum was over there. So we had a nice wee fan base there, and to go over there was amazing. We played our first game against the West Indies at Carisbrooke, Dunedin, and West Indies hit us for 415. There's a guy called Donovan Pagon who hit 174. And the funniest story about that is Chris West bowled him on 174 and told him to head back to the. And it was like, oh man.
That sounds like Show Me Your Ratner.
He did it. I couldn't believe it when he did it. But we came out to bat, and I remember actually Rob left the changing room. He was opening up with Ali Eccles. He walked out the changing room and he was like, let's go and get these now. Come on, let's chase it. And everyone was just sitting thinking, aye, mate, we're going to go out there and chase 420 against the Windies. We were like 9 for 3, and I was at the crease facing Ravi Rampal. And it was a good introduction. I think I got 40 against the West Indies. And it was a ball, like you say, the ball was coming a couple of yards quicker. But it was a good experience. We ended up getting rolled for about 150, 160, I think, in the end, maybe a few more. So we took a fair drubbing, but then we bounced back and we beat Kenya in the next game, which was like our kind of main rival in that group. And then we played the Aussies in the last game. We bowled first against the Aussies. We actually had the Aussies 30 for 3 and a bit of trouble.
Any big names in the Aussies team?
Well, some of the boys that you were named, Dan Christian. Dan Christian, he was playing. Cameron White then came out and got 150. So obviously we know what he went on to do. He's a class cricketer. Crossway was the keeper.
Adam
Cosgrove, the heavy boy that plays for Leicester, he opened the batting. He was a serious player. So that is Marsh as well, Sean Marsh. So they had a good team. But we did okay. I mean, we had them in a bit of trouble, but with Cameron White's 150, they went on to get about 320. And we were, I think we crawled maybe 170, 180 or something. So we were a wee bit disappointed. We thought we were never likely to beat the West Indies in Australia, but we probably would have liked to have done a little bit better. But then we went into the plate competition, and we lost. No, we beat Canada, and we lost to Nepal, which was a bit of a cock up by I'll blame Mike Hendrick and Rob Moore. They never calculated that we needed to chase it in a certain amount of overs, and unfortunately we then realised we had to chase it in a certain amount of overs to make the semi-final of the plate, and we all went for it and we got bowled out. So that was a bit of a disaster. Another
coaching cock up. Who was the coach then? Was it Hendrick? Was it
Hendrick and the late Willie Morton?
Was Will
who, great memories of Morts. Great man, great cricketer, great person off the field. I mean, you know him very well as well. Great mentor to have on a tour like that. Hendo was a bit more the kind of in your face type a little bit, and Willie was kind of the the one that would put his arm over your shoulder and keep you right. There's a lot of young boys away on that tour. Monty was the youngest in the squad. He was only 15. I was 16. Kyle was 17. So we had a lot of youngsters in the tour, and Willie was amazing with us. I've got so many fond memories of him.
Great guy, wasn't he? He was a great guy. Always had a laugh, always had a smile on his face, and he just kept the lads up, didn't he? So, I'm sure Keith very proud of his dad, and hope he always. People always speak of Willie with a smile on their face, which is half the battle. And then, mate, for you, I suppose it was coming back for the World Cup. And when did you first break into the sort of, if you're younger then, but when did you break into the full team? Were you 20s or?
Well, I came back from the World Cup and then I signed a contract with the MCC Young Cricketers. So myself and Kyle had just signed contracts. He signed one with Durham, and I'd signed one with the YCs. So I got back from the World Cup and was straight down to London at Lord's, and that was a real eye opener. Being away from home for the first time, living in kind of your own hostel kind of digs. I was probably the youngest in the squad down there. Probably made a few blunders along the way. I played some good cricket. My first game I played, I was playing against Phil Tufnell, Ed Joyce, O.S. Shah, and I got a 70, and we beat Middlesex in that game, and I was thinking, this is easy, this is an absolute doddle. And then we played some second 11 championship cricket after that, and I soon got straightened out by a couple of old pros who just found me out. Got hit in a few parts of the body that weren't very nice, and then just didn't really manage myself very well. You were kind of left to your own accord. You were expected to be responsible and sensible, and me, Flanners, I wasn't always the most sensible.
I imagine you in your early 20s anyway.
couple too many late nights, and probably not looking after my diet in the right ways, and just not training enough, i.e. even in relation to fitness and stuff. Because you're so young, you just get away with it. But it started taking its toll, and I probably in the end became quite homesick down there. Played my first season, did reasonably well, got offered a second contract, and then when I went down there the second year, it was my first experience, I think, of experiencing, probably when I look back at it now, kind of experiencing depression and just being really struggling being away from home. And I just handed my resignation in. Mike Kendrick was raging with me, didn't select me for the next under-19 World Cup, which pretty much probably could have been the end of my cricket playing days quite easily. I could have stopped playing cricket then, not to go to the World Cup. Even though I went to South Africa with Kyle for 6 months, I got myself in a good position. I was still, but I think mistakes on both parts. But I think Mike Kendrick didn't really take the time. He's very old school. Maybe in current days, some coaches would have sat down and discussed the issues with me. It wasn't. I think it was because he was part of the recommendation of sending me down there. He felt that I'd disrespected him. Yeah. But if he'd taken a bit more time to understand why I'd left, then maybe he would have. But yeah, unfortunately, I had to miss out on an under-19 World Cup in India and watch the boys. And that was my time to be playing with likes of Omar, Monty, all these guys. Kyle was still in the team. So it was Ian Young was in the team. So that would have been it was sad to miss out on that, but such is life.
So that's another disappointment. Quite young age, isn't it? And these are things that can lead into later problems in life. And having been through it myself, there's a lot of lows in there in any sport. So that's probably your second or first low. And looking back now, mate, I suppose could you have toughed it out down there? Do you reckon it would have been different if you had?
I've always looked back and assessed it and analysed it, and I think, yeah, I've been honest with you there that I probably didn't do myself any favours. I got up to a bit of mischief around the hostel, pissed a few people off, and I had a few chaps at the door and whatnot. I actually talked to Ross Taylor about it on the podcast. He was about to kill me one day because I threw shaving foam all over his bed, and he was going to kill me. He didn't remember it. I refreshed his memory. But those kind of antics, just doing some stupid stuff. And then when you realise that maybe you've had a couple of heavy words from a few people that are a lot older than you, there's not much you can do about it. Then you're sitting in your room and it's kind of like feeling so, starting to really feel it, starting to miss home. But yeah, I could have done things differently. But we when you're young, aren't you? We all make mistakes.
Yeah, and let's move on to some better times, mate, for yourself and, and getting into the Scotland team and getting your debut and who gave you a debut, mate? Who picked you for Scotland?
Andy Moles.
Right.
Andy Moles gave me my debut. He gave me my debut against the Dutch in an I Cup game, and I got a first baller off from Ryan Tendescata, LBW, and then it rained for the next 3 days. So when I actually got out, it rained. If I'd only managed to pace 2 or 3 more balls, I would have had a not out and a drawn 4-day game. But Tendescata just ran in and just skidded one through me. LBW. It was over in Holland. And the rest of the tour was just spent familiarising myself with the older boys in the squad. You know, there was a lot of guys, a lot of legends that have played for Scotland over the years.
Who was the characters in the team then?
Pretty sure Maka was on that tour. I'm pretty sure Neil McCallum was on that tour, and as you know, he's a fine man, and he's
pissing on your leg in the shower if you're unlucky.
The amount of times I've seen that guy is very seldomly has clothes on. I shouldn't say this in a podcast because a bloody school teacher and it'll concern people. I'm sure he never does it when he's at school. But my God, the amount of times that I even remember once he walked in on Omar Hussein, who was on a phone call to some people that and in the background. So just the way me and you are talking right now, Neil McCallum just walked in. All right, Omi, how you doing, mate? Omar's like closing the laptop, things like that. We had the mannequin, the Borat mannequin.
Yeah.
He would just have that on whenever we go to the poolside and stuff like that. And he was nuts, but I loved it because we were pretty nuts as well, Flanners. We'd done a lot of crazy things, blasting the music in my old Golf, flying down the motorway. We had some funny times.
To be fair, the funniest thing for me recently is thinking back to the A-team games, and I see Smudgers set up a sort of service where he'll take you, from a 5-class service. Yep. But I tell you something, if his driving's anything like it was back in the A-team games, he wouldn't be getting in the car with him, that's for sure.
He was nuts. He used to bomb it in those Zafira 7-seaters we used to get. He would bomb it. Gregor Maiden used to drive it. He used to absolutely floor it.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm saying this, some of the journeys we were driving down there all those years ago because you just wanted to get home. They were long journeys. You either we were always getting there late to start a very early start the next morning or wanting to just get back up the road. So people used to fairly put the foot down. I'm surprised a few more guys didn't get points or anything. We had a pretty clear way, to be honest.
I know, and I suppose that was those days we're talking about now is probably after when you were obviously in the first team and the Scotland team, and when you scored your hundreds, mate, which is obviously something you'll look back on as a very, very proud moments in your cricketing career, and your family will look back on them. And there was 3 of them, mate. So it was an unbelievable achievement for you as well. And Ireland, Kenya, and it was Holland as well, was it? Or
no, I scored one in Pakistan on debut in first-class cricket in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And then Ireland, and then straight back to back Kenya.
Ireland must have been a cracker to get 100 against them, mate.
Mate, that I still get a good feeling about that one. I've got the picture up in my place because I had the bat raised at Manor Field and somebody got a good snap. I hadn't really proven myself in international cricket at that point. I'd been in the one-day side in and out a few times. I hadn't really scored anything of note, and I got selected to bat at 3 in that game at Manor Field. And I remember we had a chat the night before the game, and we discussed things like, listen, we're not going to be mates with the Irish. And Ireland were the team at that point. They'd gone past us. We'd lost a few players, and Ireland were playing some pretty good cricket. This was, not long after they had all their World Cup success and everything. So we chatted about it, and I was fielding short leg in the first innings. We bowled first, and I remember coming hard at them. Porterfield, he hit me in the shin off the back foot. And he's like, you all right, mate? And I was like, just concentrate on your batting, mate. Don't you worry about what's wrong with me. And then, you know, Kevin O'Brien walked in, and I was like, this guy's a walking wicket, lads, absolute walking wicket. You know, and he looked at me, gave me a look like, who are you talking to? I'm big time, mate. I'm the man around here. And I can't remember who he got, but Maggie just ripped through them. Maggie got a 5. Gowd's got wickets in that game as well. Sterling, I think, if I remember correctly, pulled one down to fine leg. He got out quite early. So we rolled them for 205. And you know the way the I Cup, how it works. If you get a lead in the first innings, you get first innings points.
Yeah.
So there was about 45 minutes left in day one, and Dougie Lockhart opened the batting with Fraser Watts. So they went out to open up, and Trent Johnson, I think it was Fraggle, knocked his poles over in the first over. So I'm walking out, it's grim at Manofield, really dull, and I've got to the wicket, and I've never taken chat like that in my life. They had like 5 slips, gullies, and it was like Bota said to, I think he said to Gary Wilson, who was keeping, he was like, this guy bottled it from the MCC, didn't he? He ran home from the MCC. And I'm like, how does this guy know this? And then he's like, and then Trent Johnston, he was at the top of his run up, and he's just like, he's shouting to Kevin O'Brien, this black, what's he doing batting for number 3 for Scotland? What the hell is this? They're handing out caps these days. Hearts just going. So he bowled me the first ball, and I left out his head off stump, and he was here in my face, and he was just, I mean, I won't share all the words, but he was coming hard. I don't know what, I just thought, let's just have it out here then. And I walked all the way down the wicket with them and walked alongside them, and I was just like, aye mate, what's the problem? Let's have it then. Let's see what you're all about. Come on. And then I turned around to the keeper in the slips, and I was like, you know, I won't, my mother might end up watching this, so I won't choose all the words.
Yeah.
But then it was like, I took my guard, and I was thinking, if I get out now,
oh, you shouldn't.
I'm going to get walked off this pitch. Oh. They're going to walk me off this pitch. So I batted, I was about 30 not out overnight, and you know, felt good, walked off not out. Right, we were 2 down, so me and Ryan Watson walked off at the end of the day's play. Went for a nice wee meal, wee Indian restaurant with Maggie. Maggie had said to me, you got to get 100 tomorrow. And I was ready in my head. I was like, I'm getting 100 tomorrow, 100%, getting 100. Yeah. Now, they had 2 very good spinners, Kyle McCallan and Regan West, and it was turning big on that wicket, really, really turning big. But I like playing spin, and I just started nurdling my way. If you look at the scorecard for that game, I don't think anybody else scored over 15. Maybe 20 was the next highest score. So I kept losing a partner as time went on, until Ali Evans walked in at 11, and I was on about 96. And I was like, Ali, you got about 2 or 3 balls to pace here. Just block them, and then let me try and get over the line the other end. So I got my 100. And then the plan was that we'd also got first innings points. So we'd gone past Ireland. So I said to Ali, I took a single in the 3rd ball of the over, or 4th ball of the over, and I said, just block these next 2 out. McCallan's bowling from the other end. I'm playing him well. I'll go after him and try and get some runs. The giraffe decides that he wants to go downtown.
Oh no.
He hits it up in the air. Sterlo actually said this during our podcast. He said it made me laugh so much because as he hit it up in the air, I just went, Ali, what are you doing, man? And he's just like, but at least he got me to my 100. So thank you for that, Ali. He got me over the line. Yeah. But yeah, we walked off with innings points, and then we were 17 for 5 or 27 for 5 in our second innings, and it rained. Right. It rained, so we basically got the points. But the best feeling was walking off the pitch. Trent Johnston, Kyle McCallan. It's what I love about the sport. They came hard at me, but I earned their respect, and it felt good. That was the first time I really properly announced myself in international cricket.
Do you find that I always found when someone got stuck into you, it sort of spurred you on to concentrate more, I think, doesn't it? And battle. I think you've got a little bit similar traits when it comes to that, and definitely similar traits when talking trash in the middle. That's for sure. Your chat's better than mine. Mine's is just aggression. Mine tends to be aggressive. You come out with some, but the problem with you was nobody could understand you. As soon as we got south of the border, I think they all just were like, "What's this guy talking about?" Kelsey, the best story for me was Jade Dernbach at the Oval, and he's charging in, and to be honest, I couldn't actually see the ball, mate. It was a white wicket, white ball, black side screens, but like a sort of white frame around it. and he's charging in. He bowled first ball off back of a length, and I've went forward to this thing back of a length, and it's clattered me on the grill, and the grill sort of like cut my face a little bit just in here, and he said something along these lines like, "You Scottish, this and that," and I've said something back to him in a Kelso accent, and he's looked at me and he's like, "What the hell did you say, mate?" I went, "Mate, you've got a girl's name now," and that was sort of third ball at the oval. Anyway, bumped me a couple of times, missed a few. Yasser Arafat's bowling. Yasser bowls a nice wee way swinger outside off. I thought, this is getting hit in the stands at the oval. Nicked off, walked off for about 3 or 4 with a nice little bruise on my face. But that's
I didn't know he pinned you. That's the first time I've heard that story. You got.
To be honest, mate, I never knew it hit me until I got down the other end. It sort of just clattered the grill and walked up the other end. But it was. That's a good part about it, as you mentioned there. Is I remember times being in Australia when the Aussies always come hard at you, don't you? And but after the game, they share a beer, and that's what's brilliant about cricket, isn't it? And that's why the lads come together. Yeah, mate. Listen, I suppose, and then your career, I would say, massive highs there for the Scotland team. And then I suppose big lows, being dropped out of the team, and also a controversial falling out with Pete Steindl. Is that something you can sort of let us know what happened there?
There's one thing I want to mention just before going any further, that people don't actually remember this, and I do like to remind people of it. So I got labelled as a bit of a 4-day player,
right?
But I once went to the T20 World Cup in South Africa.
Right.
And that was off the back of my. So I went in a 15-man squad to South Africa, the first ever T20 World Cup.
I
carried a few drinks, but I also played in the warm-up game against Zimbabwe, and I got, I think it was 30 odd. I'm not going to quote this because imagine tackle end up watching this and remind me that I was 3 runs short of what I'm saying. Okay. But I got a good score of a lot less balls, and I was very confident I was going to play against Pakistan in the first game. And Ryan Watson, Pete Steindl, and Andy Tennant informed me in the hotel downstairs that I wasn't going to be part of the team, and I kick up, lost the plot. I just, they said to me, "Oh, listen, you're here. That's a good thing." And I said, "I'm not here to carry drinks. I'm here to play." Yeah. And that was probably my first kind of fallout with senior management. And I'm actually going to get Ryan Watson. I was due to have him on the podcast, and I'm going to still have him on because I had I feel like I had a love-hate relationship with Ryan Watson. I didn't dislike him, but I always felt maybe he didn't quite rate me as a cricketer, and so there was a wee bit of something there. But I'm sure we'll iron it out over a podcast.
It's funny you say that. There's always a few players you play with and they don't rate you, but it was something I never really gave a shit about, to be honest. Is what you can do. And it's funny you mentioned the Panthero Maggi. He keeps sending me like just random scorecards.
He loves it. He's a badger, Maggi.
We played against Kolkata Knight Riders in 2012 or something in South Africa, and I think I hit 36 off 14 balls or something like that, and Maggi's like, "Oh, look at that then, mate. You're hitting the ball clean, beautiful."
Maggi loved you. Loved you. I remember, I think I said this during our podcast when we played against Notts, first time you came into the A-team. Maggi was bigging you up. Maggi was like, "This guy can play," and I was thinking, this guy just looks like he's got a bit of swagger about him. I bet he's going to go out there and snick off. And then that was the day you played 3 or 4 off Harris off your legs. And I was thinking,
I reckon Maggi was paying Andy Tennant to pick me just because Maggi was happy with the team, to be honest. Those two were my greatest fans apart from my mum. But I picked on, I mentioned Pete there, and obviously a bit of controversy with Pete Steindl, and he was my coach as well at the time. And obviously your career sort of ended when Pete was in the helm as well. What happened there with Pete?
I've known Pete pretty much all my cricketing career. Pete was the first guy that gave me a chance to play for Scotland at 13. That was something I actually quoted in my, we'll go into, I'll discuss where things went, but obviously I knew Pete very well. Mm-hmm. I went out to South Africa for the World Cup qualifiers, and the batting lineup didn't really perform out there, and I carried drinks for quite a long period of time. And that was where I felt me and Pete's relationship was already starting to deteriorate. Right. He was coming to tapping my door to let me know every night before the game that I wasn't playing, and I was getting more and more pissed off about it, to be honest, and starting to get a bit more vocal about it. And he was okay. This was when he took the job very early as a national team coach. You know, he was still finding his feet, and all the senior boys were still kicking about. Hamilton, Watson, Wright, all these kind of Colin Smith. So he wasn't as vocal. And then when we got back from South Africa, all these guys retired. Most of them called it a day. And then I remember Pete kind of coming in, and it was like myself, Richie Beggington, Monty, that core of players, Ross Lyons. And I see the different side of Pete. It was kind of like, headmasterish and being quite strict. However, Pete was also the person that pushed for me to get a contract that year. So I want to put this on record and say that I didn't ever dislike Pete Steindl. I know I've actually got a lot of fond memories, I know I went on to apologise after and things, but probably our relationship will never ever be the same. And I feel bad because he's got a lovely family. His wife, when I once came back from a tour to Namibia, was at the airport and congratulated me on a good performance. He's got two lovely daughters, if I remember correctly. So if this ever gets across to him, I probably didn't deal with things the way I should have. But at the time, I hadn't been selected to play for Scotland for quite a while. I was playing down in the Staffordshire League at the time, and I was doing pretty well, scoring runs. And I felt like it's a good time to call up Pete and let him know that you've got a couple of A-team games happening down the road. Fancy giving me a gig in one of them. Yeah. Now that was the A-team flange. That was not the senior team. Yeah. Now I feel like I'd done my time in the A-team, and I did all right with my stats. Yeah. And Pete kind of just told me, like, you're at the back of the pecking order. There's quite a few getting. I was quick to remind them that how many of these guys in that pecking order have got first-class hundreds behind them, hundreds against these counties. Do I really need to go to prove my worth here? Do you not think I deserve a chance? You're only playing down the road. And we had a bit of an uncomfortable conversation, and he pretty much made it clear that I wasn't going to be up for selection for the A-team at the moment. And that just put my nose right out of joint. And it was a couple of weeks later that I spoke to a certain Neil Drysdale, and I've got mixed feelings on stuff that I said on it, but I stand by a lot of what I said as well, because I do think the performance of the Scotland team was not up to scratch at that time. I don't think the way things were going, it was. You look, if you compared it, benchmark with the Irish and other countries, the types of coaches that they had and where their cricket was going. And I think the proof's in the pudding. Yeah. After that era, the likes of Grant Bradburn came in, and you look at the Scotland cricket team where it's gone from there. And I'm quite excited to see where Shane Berger will take things as well, because I think he comes from a solid background. But by the by, should I have done the article? Probably not. In hindsight, if I look back, maybe it was, if I kept quiet, bided my time a little bit. But I was very, very passionate about playing for my country still, and I felt like I deserved a chance to play a couple of A-team games and prove that I was good to go again. But I wasn't given that opportunity, and it's safe to say that I probably, was pretty pissed off, and I voiced my opinion.
I think there's always, I can relate to that, I think, and a lot of people relate to that. When you get older, there's things you do and mistakes you make when you're younger, and it's all off emotions, and you think that you know what's best. And from my point of view, Pete gave me some of the best experiences in my career as well. And I felt like at times that, I probably didn't get enough. But in the day, Kaz, what I always say is, you look back at, I could have worked harder, I could have done certain things to put him in those positions. So ultimately, you've held your hands up and you've voiced your opinion there. But yeah, hey, listen, Pete's a good guy, and he's doing well. So mate, that's cricket, right? That's cricket, and that's the game that we played and we loved, and we've met so many friends, and we've got fond memories across the globe, haven't we? Playing in different countries. But one thing that stands out for me, and it's something that I think is in the forefront of a lot of people's minds at the moment, is that the mental aspect that people are going through difficult times at the moment and battling with depression, and people are obviously losing loved ones. And for me, and this is why I wanted to talk to you, mate, to be honest, because I think something I've noticed about yourself, and you're very vocal in the fact that of certain situations that you obviously your marriage didn't work out, you've got kids, but you mentioned depression, and that's something I feel that we need to be, open about. People shouldn't sit in silence, and especially in this day and age, if you're working from home and it can get to people. So I think one thing, that's why I want to speak to you, mate, to obviously talk about good times, but check in and what happened, because I think you're looking back, we talked about your difficult times, but it's something that I didn't know about you till very recently. But you obviously lost a brother at 13, and I lost a brother at 18, and so was that the start of the difficult times for you, mate? And how old were you when that happened as well?
Yes, I was 13 when my younger brother passed away, and I didn't know until recently when we were just chatting over messages, and I didn't know that you'd lost a younger brother. And it's weird that we played cricket together that long, and you don't, if it's not something that's you tend to bring up over dinner, it's a very it tends to be a very personal conversation, and it was hard. It was hard. I think looking back now, I was so young that I don't think I even realised I was really upset, and I cried a lot, and it was a horrible thing to witness. I've seen my brother being buried, and heartbreaking. But it didn't hit me actually until later. Mm-hmm. As I got older, 18, 19, 20, and I would look around and I would see my good friends, and I've always been lecturing friends, because you see brothers, they always love barneying with each other. There's always, and I always try to remind them that, you're lucky you've got your brother, and you don't know what's around the corner, so you should try and cherish that relationship. But no, it was tough. My mum and dad, I'll never understand what they've what they went through. My mum was a sole carer. My younger brother had a life-shortening illness called pseudo-obstruction, Hamza, and my mum was with Hamza at York Hill Hospital day and night, so my mum was not around. I was blessed with an older sister as well, who pretty much looked after me at home, as well as my dad. Dad was still having to go out and work and stuff, so it was a tough time, and cricket probably actually kind of allowed me to still focus on something. I wasn't really interested in school. Cricket was the be all and end all, and I was so busy at those years from 13 to 19, 20 with cricket that I didn't. I got through those years okay, but I feel it even now. I feel it now. As you get older, you really start to think about things, and you look around and you see. I attended one of my good mates' younger brother's weddings recently, and you start to think, that should have been attending my younger brother's wedding at some point, or even when I got married the first time, it was sad that my younger brother wasn't present. Getting married for a second time, it's quite an empty feeling, but nothing compared to what my parents would have gone through. And I kind of regret some of the difficulties that I gave them personally by being stupid and just being at a young age, because if I knew what I know now, I would have been a lot more conscious of that. But look, we all live and learn.
Yeah, and do you think, and obviously, talk obviously your marriage and your first kid, and it is been away from you, Harris. Is that affected you, think, long term, mate? Is that why you're so vocal, on social media about it? And is that something you're struggling with at the moment?
That has probably been the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my whole life. Again, because I was so young when I lost my younger brother, you think about things differently at different ages in life. Harris was with me from when he was born to when he was, six and a half years old. Really hard, and that led me to the worst times I've faced. Probably about 2.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. I was honestly, it's something I don't really like. I don't like going too deep into it, because but I mean, I said it in my newspaper article that I did with the Scotsman. It was at the point where I was living in a 4-bedroom house, alone, and I was having thoughts that were not good. Mm-hmm. That driving on the motorway back from and just thinking, could just drive my car off. Nothing good coming for me just now. Thank God those thoughts didn't come to fruition, and I didn't do anything stupid like that. But scary to then. I think when people are going through stuff like that, they don't realise what's happening to them until, you know, I remember one day I was alone at home, and I think it was my mum or my sister that I phoned, and I just said, I need to get out of this house. I need to leave here. I need to move in with my mum or something. I need to be around people because something bad's going on. I feel something, but you know, I had anxiety. I left my job that I was in. Everything was just, and what I would say is the outside world can be quite cruel. You know, I worked in a place at the time. I'm not going to name the company because that would be unprofessional of me, but you know, I was a business developer in there, and they knew that I had gone through a bad marriage breakup and I wasn't seeing my son. Some of them showed me some concern at the beginning, but then it became kind of a laughing matter, and it became, and I'm not, you know me, Flanners, I'm normally quite, I'll give as good as I get, but when it was one of the moments in my life where I felt the most insecure and uncomfortable, because I actually went home a couple of times, I was in tears, and I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? Dust yourself off, sort yourself out, go back in and stand your ground with these people. And I couldn't do it. I actually could not do it. I was like, I can't go to work. And then I'd called in sick a couple of times. I had a car accident. I was driving down, not my fault, and a guy came out the bend and hit me front on. That bang as well, that just added on to it. It was a bad one. The car was a write-off. The airbag went off, and the guy that was my manager at the time, you know, was pressurizing me to get back into work, and it had only been 2 or 3 days since it happened. It was just one of the most. I wanted just to run and take a dive somewhere. I was totally. And then what you do sometimes as well is during that time, I did it, lashed out at some of the loved ones around you, i.e. my mum maybe saying a few things to me I didn't like, and I would just be nasty. So she would maybe not talk to me for a while, when really I probably needed my mum on side. My father was constantly trying to, but he didn't really understand what was going on. And you know, the company you keep and stuff like that at that kind of time, it was probably wasn't the best. Thank God, you know, that time has passed. I'm sitting in front of you now. Maybe you know, you can hopefully see that I'm coming across quite different, quite different. But if you'd spoken to me 2.5 years ago, and I can definitely now understand and I can relate to. And depression is an ongoing thing. I mean, I've not seen my son for 2.5 years. I think about my son every single day. So some days I can just be I can be fine. I can be okay. And then I could just go on a total nosedive and just feel pretty sad. And the biggest thing I'm thankful for is that I met my new partner, who I've been very vocal about as well. And I'm vocal about it for a reason, because it was like she's been sent to me like an angel. You know, my wife Kaya has just been breath of fresh air in my life. I've never been so happy in a relationship, and I'm truly blessed to have her in my life, and then blessed with a baby girl we called Eva. So, you know, a lot of things to be thankful for, but I actually have 2 sons. Something I announced recently.
I thought you're a busy boy back in the day, mate.
I've got a 16-year-old going on 17-year-old son, Callum, and I met with him recently, and that's an ongoing relationship. It's obviously we've not been part of each other's life for many years, but it felt bloody good to meet him. I had seen him many years ago when he was younger, and life and different mistakes that I've made as well. But I'm trying to, you know, we all make mistakes, and I'm just a guy that's trying to put some wrongs right, and working towards being part of all 3 of my children's lives. That's the dream for me. That's what keeps me going. I would love to have all 3 children part of my life where I have some sort of influence on them, and I can care for all of them, and hopefully teach them to learn from some of my mistakes. That's and I'm a big advocate for mental health in general, and as you said, I'm very vocal about it, and I get messages from just random people that I don't know very well, and I try to give my time to anybody and whoever it may be, whatever kind of problems they're facing, because it's bad, man. It's bad. If people need to really, and I think people are more educated on it, but it can be, it's bad that these are the things that people don't just commit suicide because, you know, they never got a chocolate bar that they wanted. You know, it builds up over time. It tends to be something that's caused it, probably that's leading, but you don't get help. How many times do you hear about people committing suicide? It's horrible. But I think that's why I tried to be vocal about it. I know some people call it feeling sorry for yourself still. I mean, I remember when Jonathan Trott spoke out, he was one of the first, one of the originals, and I'll put my hand up and say that I was like, oh, he's bricking it off Mitchell Johnson. He wants to go home. How wrong I was to think like that, because even you know, you don't know what the guy was going through in the hotel room alone, you know, away from family. You know, Marcus Trithkotic, another cricketer who's suffered from it. It's bad, man. It's and it can really cause you a lot of harm and put you through stuff that's it's really it's quite sad. So anybody that's suffering from mental health, be it anxiety, depression, whatever, then you should try and surround yourself with people that love and care for you, and also you should try and speak to people and seek help.
Yeah, I think I was going to ask, you know, what would your advice be to people who are struggling, mate? But to be honest, you've just hit the nail on the head there. You've got to surround yourself with people that are loving, caring, and speak up. Do you know what I mean? Don't sit in the shadows and let yourself drift away. And I think you're right. In sport, it's been that whole attitude of just get on with it. Do you know what I mean? And I think you can see that, get on with it, be fine, or you're soft. And I think it's actually taken people to take their own lives, so people actually stand up and actually take a notice of it, which is such a shame. Yep. But yeah, and you know, to be honest, mate, if anyone knew you know, growing up playing cricket with you, you're the bubbly guy, you're the character, you're always, you know, creating an environment and an atmosphere which is people having a laugh. And to hear like how dark times have got for you there, you know, it's scary. It is very scary. So I'm glad to see you've got like a beautiful family now, mate, as well, and things are looking up. And listen, that brings me the next one is, mate, is, you know, what does the podcast hold for you now? Because you've had some big names, you've had some great guests. Obviously, the first one was the best guest that you got on.
100%.
What's the pattern now? What are you up to now? What's the plan?
Well, it's been one of the best things I think I've ever done in my life. Just got this little, you know, I actually did. I thank the guys over at Halfway Up Middle, Matthew Parker. It was actually him and Liam that were wanting to start something up, and they'd spoken to me about doing a couple of podcasts. I'd already done some stuff with Crick Index before, Eddie Gibbs. So I had a little bit of experience of doing it. You know me, I like to talk and I like to share my opinions. And it went quite well. And then I said to them, where do you want to take this then? You know, what's next? And I think they were kind of like, well, we're kind of doing our thing. And I was like, hey, do one, Shaky, off you go. And I was like, hey, listen, no, fair enough. No, totally cool. And then I just went away, got in touch with your good self. And I was like, why don't I test the waters here and see how this goes? I think you did about 780 views, and I know that's nothing compared to when you appeared on Dinner Date and you had hundreds of thousands.
Mate, it's up 110,000 and now me getting paid.
But when you're starting out, I've done my research to get even anywhere near 1,000 views, which is what I ended up getting with the likes of Maggie, Darren, Sammy. That's pretty good going for a guy who's just started a podcast. The guests have been I've been very lucky. You know, Darren, Sammy came on, and it was actually Majid that had an interaction with Tino Best on Twitter, and I was like, they know each other or they know somewhere each other. I was like, Maggie, have a word with Tino Best. Tino Best and me are like chums now, you know, and I had him on the podcast. He was absolutely fantastic. Omar Henry, great story, you know, South African legend. Obviously I had his son to open that door up for me and ping his dad, and you know, he was a pleasure to speak with. Andy Moles, ex coach of mine, has obviously just gone through a really tough stage in his life. Has been been given a prosthetic leg after having his leg amputated. What an inspiration it was to speak to him and hear how he's bouncing back, and looking to inspire people and let them know that, you know, you can go on. And then I've crossed over. I spoke to first type 1 diabetic professional boxer, Muhammad Ali from Manchester. Great story. I know of a few people that have been inspired by that, whose children have got diabetes. So that was amazing to hear about. See, it's just to hear when somebody says, you know what, I really enjoyed that, or that inspired me, or that's the best feeling. You know, Barry Maxwell, a girl that I had on the show, first girl I ever seen play cricket. We were friends on Facebook. She'd been watching a few of the podcasts, and she said to me, "Do you know, would you have me on?" And I was like, "Oh, tell me about your story." And when she told me about her story, I was like, "Absolutely, you know, served in the army, served in the navy, played cricket for Scotland, faced a lot of challenges with her mental health and depression, and it was a big thing for her to do. She was nervous all the way up to doing it. What a podcast, you know what? And she's had so many loving messages. She's been so many people inspired by her story. Just those things alone. Majid Hack, another very, very, like, the most listened to podcast. I think it was really good for Majid to get some closure and for people to maybe hear a bit more about the story. There's always two sides to every story. And I think things could have been handled perhaps differently on both sides. And Majid got to tell his story, and I know he got a lot of support, and a lot of people maybe that doubted Majid maybe had a change of opinion on that. So that meant a lot to me as well. Good friend of mine, obviously. So it touched my heart to do that podcast. You were great. You know, we had a good laugh. It took me back down memory lane speaking to you again, because, you know, we had a lot of great times. Where is it going to go? Who knows? Who knows? I'm not sitting on a large bank balance right now, put it that way. You know, I would love to get into doing some media work. There was chat about potentially doing some commentary for Cricket Scotland and the horizon, but all the games got cancelled. To name another person who's been very much supportive to me is old friend and current captain Kyle Coetzer. Obviously, I had him on the podcast as well. He was fantastic. He's been very supportive to me, and I appreciate that a lot. I think that's been really good as well. I've had a lot of support from people. You've been really supportive to me. I want to name a guy, Graham McLaren. He's been a big supporter to me, and you know, we've talked a lot. You know, there was some moments where I was starting to maybe pay a bit too much attention to the views and stuff, because it went from like way up here. But I think that was because it was lockdown, and then people got back to their lives, and that, you know, but I decided that I'm not going to give up. I want to keep going. This really helps me, and I hope it helps some other people out there. So then got the idea of, why don't I go back to Mr. Original? Why don't I get Ryan Flannigan on? And you know, you've got some pretty cool ideas. I think it's important to freshen things up a little bit. So why don't you tell us what the future holds? What kind of ideas? What have you got up your sleeve?
Mate, to be honest, I think for me is the big thing is the whole mental health issue for me. I think there's a big drive on people speaking out, and it's really surprised me how, you know, videos and podcasts can touch so many people. Do you know what I mean? In cricket, it's a followed sport, and sport in general is followed by so many individuals across Scotland and in the UK, and you never know when that little comment from maybe their hero or someone they've played with in the past or someone they've looked up to, that'll just shape their day and maybe shape their life moving forward. So yeah, there's going to be people out there of their comments or critics, but at the end of the day, mate, if it makes you feel better and it makes other people feel better, then that I think that's, you know, brilliant. And I think in terms of some of the names that I'd love to bring to the table, you know, you've got guys like Alex Hales, you've got George Bailey, you mentioned Dan Christian. These are guys that I've played cricket with, and, you know, some bloody World Cup winners, these guys, you know what I mean, and T20 World Cup winners. So I think for me, and there's a few rugby lads that I'd love to speak to.
What about the Hibbies? Have you got? You must have a few contacts there, Flanners.
Mate, listen, I think
you must be in the hospitality. You don't go to the stands anymore, do you?
Mate, listen, when my mate David Witherspoon played for Hibs, it was a free pie at half time and a cold seat at Easter Road. But Spoonie's been playing for St Johnstone for a few years now. So now, listen, my love with Hibs is not diminishing, of course. But now it's I think we just you got to keep it interesting. And I think, you know, if people get the big names and I suppose, you know, getting a few sponsors out there as well, because then the day, you know, if you're getting our name out on Twitter, across YouTube and Facebook, and there's plenty of businesses in Edinburgh that will be looking for additional help. And I think there's a lot of members at the Grange that will have very successful businesses. I know a few, like you've got Genius Lager and things like that. These are sort of guys that we'd love to maybe hit up and get promoting across these sort of different platforms as well. So yeah, listen, we'll try the well-to-do type at Grange and see if there's anyone kicking about for some sponsors. But yeah, mate, that would be a plan for me anyway.
Yeah, no, look, I've had some conversations with a few East. I won't name any people because there's nothing been finalised, but I have had some conversations predominantly with people who own businesses from Edinburgh. I'm keen to try and approach some people in Glasgow. I think bringing you on board could open up some other doors. As you're saying, you've got some great guests that you're lined up, and I think just having a fresh face on the podcast, people are probably getting to the point they're sick of my mug. So I think it'll be really, really interesting to maybe co-host a couple of big guests and pick their brains. And I agree with you. I think where the real enjoyment and what people really get inspired from is definitely on the mental health side of things, because I think people like real. If you're going to be real and you're going to talk about your real life challenges, that's the stuff that people can relate to. Too often do you hear about people that are trying to be somebody they're not on TV, and that's something I'm just not trying to be. I'm just trying to be myself, and I tried to bring that out of the guests, and some of them have been great at that, and I think you'll be really good at that as well. I mean, I've enjoyed speaking with you. You've put me at ease, and your questioning has been good. You try to take my job. You try to change the name from Shaky Sports Journeys to Flanners Sports Journeys. Shakies and Flanners Sports Journeys, we could be eventually taking over the globe, mate.
Double team, mate, double trouble. But I think it's the awareness, isn't it? It's getting the awareness out there that people are here to chat, and people want to hear the stories, the old cricketing tales or the old football tales. That's what people are all about, mate. So, listen, I hope everyone's enjoyed Ryan Flannigan's first episode with the main man himself, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Sheikh. So yeah, listen, guys, thanks so much, mate, and look forward to doing this together a lot more.
Much appreciated, Flanners. Very excited about the future. And I know you're a busy man, but if we can get a couple of recordings in a month, I'm sure we can keep people entertained.
Good man. Cheers, mate.
Take care, mate.
Cheers, mate.